Some would say that horror films are just for adults, but how did these adults, also known as horror heads, as I love to call you all, come into existence? Are these oddballs born this way, or were they shaped and molded by the movies of their youths? It's the latter, obviously. And today, we're looking at films that teens can watch to become full-fledged horror fans. Welcome back to Honest Pop Culture Reviews. I'm your honed-in host, Jackie K, and I'm super excited to go through this list with you all today. Much of the world is stuck inside due to self-quarantining, and maybe our older families with kids over the age of 10 need some new films to watch. Today, let's review the top 5 family-friendly scary films for kids 10 and up. These films can be a bit scarier for the younger crowd, but should be pretty delightful and deliver just the right amount of chills for families with kids 10 and older. Some may be rated PG-13, or before that rating system included PG-13, but don't forget, although I'll be breaking down what makes these films great and scary, I'm still a stranger on the internet, and you know what your child can handle more than some rando. So, if you're unsure about a film, be sure to look further into the movie before you toss it on for your viewing pleasures. Number 5, Clue, rated PG. Available for free on Sony's Crackle and Amazon Prime, Clue is a complete cult classic. Although more of a scary comedy mystery than actual horror film, Clue is very deserving of our 5 spot today. It is the first film that was based on a board game, and in my humble opinion, the very best movie based on a board game. It takes its plot from the game along with the main characters. You have 6 guests who are anonymously invited to a strange, creepy mansion for dinner. But after their host is killed, they must cooperate with the staff to identify the murderer as the bodies pile up. It is the perfect caper. Lots of very dry but incredibly funny humor and jokes. The cast leans into the roles perfectly, while the musical score and set pieces paints a gloomy and frightening setting. It is a cult classic hemmed by the amazing Tim Curry, and I have a very special place in my heart for the crazy Mrs. White. She is a gem. There are no bloody scenes. The kills are more comedical and scary, and the classic case of whodunit is one that will keep the entire family guessing. It's my suggestion you watch the film with all 3 endings instead of selecting one at random. I love watching the Scooby-Doo races all the same. Clue is rated PG for brief sex and nudity, small violence and gore. Really no gore though. Brief profanity, scenes with alcohol, drugs, and smoking, and frightening and intense scenes. Number 4, Van Helsing, rated PG-13. Streaming on HBO and available to rent on Prime for $3.99, Van Helsing is a classic adventure film that focuses on the vampire hunter Van Helsing, portrayed by the ever-youthful Hugh Jackman beside the beautiful Kate Beckinsale. Director Stephen Sommers, also known for his work on The Mummy Returns, and even Odd Thomas, we have a fun adventure fantasy with mild scares and a new twist on many classic tales. Van Helsing opens in black and white at the climax of the story of Frankenstein, but with Dracula as kind of as the bad scientist financial backer. Then you cut to the great Van Helsing in Paris hunting down Mr. Hyde. He is like an Indiana Jones vigilante who hunts down unholy monsters in medieval Europe instead of religious treasures with much nicer toys. The story eventually traipses through the who's who's of Universal monsters with a witty script and clever plot progression. Van Helsing is one of my absolute favorite films, and if you and your family haven't had a chance to watch it yet, I highly suggest you remedy that during quarantine. Van Helsing is rated PG-13 for non-stop creature action, violence, and frightening images, and for some sensuality. Number 3, Insidious, rated PG-13. Heading into the enticingly scary films, Insidious is an updated 2010 version of Poltergeist, in my own humble opinion. It is one of notorious horror director James Wan's first films, and his haunted house venture is a worthy one. Insidious is currently available on Netflix for streaming and will deliver a mass amount of scares and chills for the whole family. Be sure you turn the lights down low and be prepared for the crescendoing music, as the score is the backbone of the scares in this film. The setting takes place in a nuclear family's new home where spooky happenings begin to conspire after the son slips into a coma. When the mother acclaims ghosts, The family is smart enough to actually move to a new home, but the hauntings end up following them. Juan uses great practical effects and a star-studded, believable cast of Patrick Wilburn, Rose Byrne, and horror royalty Lynn Shay, who also happened to begin her run in a small bit in A Nightmare on Elm Street. This is a truly terrifying film if you go in with the right mindset, so be sure to keep that in mind when thinking about your children. Insidious is rated PG-13 for thematic material, violence, terror, and frightening images, and brief, strong language. Number 2, Poltergeist, rated PG. Available to rent for $3.99 on Amazon Prime, Poltergeist is, well, the original Poltergeist haunted house film. Although it is rated PG, I'm going to let you all in on a little secret. Poltergeist was so incredibly scary and frightening for the time, which was 1982, that after countless families were scarred from watching the film, the Motion Picture Association of America had to go and create a new rating that would sit between PG and rated R. And thus, PG-13 was born, thanks to Poltergeist. But to this day, it still hasn't been re-rated. It honestly should be at this point. I don't know if you can do that. Poltergeist was directed by horror aficionado Tobe Hooper of Texas Chainsaw Massacre fame, but was also heavily influenced by Steven Spielberg. Now, if you can go into this film with an open mind, realizing that the movie is quite dated from the last 40 years when it comes to special effects, you will realize it is a truly exquisite horror film that crafted the perfect haunted house tropes, which are still used in many films today. It also gave birth to the false claim of an Indian burial ground as a trope. There's just so many tropes in there. If you sit there and watch it, you're like, wow, this movie used that one, this one used that one. It's a lot of fun. I enjoy it a lot. I think I watched Poltergeist when I was under the age of 5. It truly scared me. But I love it. It's one of my favorite films now. I was not scarred by it. It is a film that every fledgling horror fan needs to watch, and it's a perfect family film that all will delight in watching and getting spooked during. Poltergeist is rated PG for some sex and nudity. There's not really, I just watched it. There's a little panty scene and that's it. It's not even sexual, it's scary. Like profanity, the presence of alcohol, drugs, and smoking, a little bit of weed by the parents, and some intense and frightening sequences, but don't forget what I told you, it is literally the film that birthed the rating of PG-13. Honorable mention, The Woman in Black, 2012, rated PG-13. The Woman in Black is actually a very scary PG-13 film. I remember I was clutching my companion's leg in fear while watching it in theaters. But a lot of that is being in the right mindset to watch and enjoy the film. To get the proper spooks from this Daniel Radcliffe film, the first one he did after finishing Harry Potter, pop some popcorn, turn the lights completely off, make it as dark as possible, and watch it after the sun sets. If you get the atmosphere just right for this film, you and your teens will have a hoot and a half watching it. If not, you lose a lot of the tension in daylight and it may not deliver the proper scares. The Woman in Black is a very honorable mention for this gothic remake based on an original novel and can be hit or miss, which is why I placed it right here on the list. It did so well in theaters though that they crafted a very unneeded sequel. Some people really enjoyed the original, which I've read great things about, but unfortunately have never been able to find a copy of the British television film. The 2012 version is available on Prime to stream. Interesting tidbit before we go to our number 1 spot, the main character, Arthur Kipps, played by Daniel Radcliffe, was originally played by his very own wizarding father, Adrian Rawlins, in 1989, who went on to play James Potter. Number 1, Monster Squad, rated PG-13. In the 1987 Fred Dekker film, The Monster Squad is literally a masterclass in scary, family-friendly movies. It is currently available to stream on Amazon Prime and Shudder, you're welcome, and is actually, and I'm not exaggerating this one bit, my all-time favorite film out of absolutely everything. Monster Squad is my number 1. I grew up watching this film, and for a time I watched it so often I literally wore out the VHS tape. And I watched it at a very young age, maybe 5, maybe younger, but for a normal kid they should probably be 10 or 13. There is a bit of violence and quite a few deaths, although none are really none are really that bloody, I would say, for sure. Yeah. The Monster Squad is like Goonies meets The Lost Boys meets Ghostbusters when it comes to 80s nostalgia, but instead of just vampires or pirates in the local mob or just ghosts, you have a couple of kids battling literally almost every single Universal monster. You have Swamp Thing, Wolfman, the Mummy, Dracula, and even the big man Frank coming together to bring the world into limbo. And the only people who are aware of their scheme for world domination are a couple of kids, the Monster Squad. It's an incredibly clever script, a very fun atmosphere, beautiful and believable acting in my humble opinion, and I believe it was literally the movie that got me hooked on horror. As I stated before, there are some intense scares, a little bit of nudity, a lot of adultish humor, and profanity, giving this a solid PG-13 rating. But overall, if you go into this film knowing it was prime 1980s cinematography, you and your teens will love this goofy yet scary, intuitive film. Well, that's our list, Honest Pop Culture fans. What did you think of it? Were there other PG-13 horror movies that could have made the list today? I'm sure there were. I can't wait for October to roll around because I have so many Halloween holiday-related horror films for families that I want to watch and talk about with you guys. And October can't come soon enough because then hopefully we'll also be out of quarantine because oh my god. And remember, be sure to wear your mask when you go out in public, as I stated in our last video. Keep you and your family safe in these very scary times. And take solace in the fact that you can spook yourself a bit with these classic films mentioned today. Thanks for tuning in. Please like, share, subscribe, comment, do all of those amazing things to help this channel thrive and grow. This has been Honest Pop Culture Reviews. I've been your host, Jackie K, keeping pop culture honest. And today we're looking at the films that teens can watch to become full-fledged horror fans. Ow! Stubbed my toe. It hurt. The Monster Squad is like the Goonies meets Lord of the Flies. That's not right. Were there other PG-13 horror films? It's fine. It's fine. I just can't speak. It's okay. And remember, be sure to wear your mask. I don't have my mask. That's great, Jackie.